You can find the following parts available at technotoytuning.com.
What's up YouTube? Today we're going to be doing some modifications on the front suspensions of the Datsun 510, including new lower control arms, new TC rods, and new tie rods, as well as fully adjustable coilovers, all by Techno Toy Tuning. The tools that you'll need for these modifications are wrenches ranging from 14 millimeters to 24 millimeters, cotter pins, as well as lithium grease to re-grease the wheel bearings. Okay, so in order to get the lower control arms attached to the car correctly, first we have to take the old steering knuckle from the Datsun 510 and attach it to the lower control arm ball joint. Now, just a warning, if you have an early version of the 510, in my case I have a 1969, they used 11 millimeter ball joints instead of the 70 to 73, which used 14 millimeter ball joints. So, that being said, I had to get this drilled out or reamed out with a tapered ream to 14 millimeters, which is kind of a hassle if you don't know the right people. So, just a warning, if you're going to get the GTX2 control arms from Techno Toy Tuning, be prepared to have a little bit of milling done to your steering. And so we got the 22 millimeter bolt here, and we got the 24 millimeter back here. And this, I've gotten different torque specifications, but you do want to be able to keep this so that it can rotate, because this is what's going to be steering your car. So I'm just going to tighten it until I feel comfortable. You want to get a few threads showing on this. There is the option to use a cotter pin, although having the nylon lock washer does make it so that you don't need to use the cotter pin. Alright, so now it's on there, and as you can see, if you put it on backwards, just rotate it around. Also, you might have noticed some white powder on the vise. Was there a fire? Perhaps. Is everything fine? Most likely. Okay, so now that we have the steering knuckle and the lower control arm, it's time to join both of those to the coilovers. And that's just going to be these two bolts right here, 17 mils. You want to make sure that everything lines up right. And get these guys going. Almost forgot to add some thread locks, so I'm just gonna put that in there.
And again, I'm not super sure about the torque specs that you want to put on here, so I just tightened them until I felt like they were nice and tight.
Okay, so now we're going to put our assembled lower control arm, steering knuckle, and coilover into the car. And it helps if you have an extra set of hands, or just to use a jack to lift the coilover into the strut tower. Okay, so this is also a time where it definitely helps to have ratchet extensions, just so you can really reach those bolts all the way up there and tighten them down. First, we're just going to hand tighten them.
And Techno Toy Tuning provides all the hardware for this, including lock washers and nuts, so you can just use what they give you and it'll bolt right up.
Okay, so factory torque specs on these, 25 foot-pounds. So get the old torque wrench and set it to 25. And I believe these are 13 millimeter bolts, if I'm not mistaken. Add a dab of thread lock where I can. And I don't like to tighten all these at once to 25 foot-pounds. Let's get them nice and pretty tight and then come around and finish the job on a second round of tightening.
Some of the bolts are kind of hard to reach, so you might have to adjust the coilover once it's in place.
Adjustable camber plate up a little bit just to give me a little more access to the rear. Bolt should make things a little easier. There's 25. And it's helpful if you have something that you can wedge your wrench in between, just so you don't have to hold both top and bottom wrench simultaneously. And there you go. It's in, and I'm not going to make major camber adjustments right now, but if you wanted to, it's just these 4 bolts, which I believe once you're done you tighten down to just like 12 foot-pounds, and it makes it fully adjustable. You just loosen them and this slides back and forth to give you the camber angle that you want. But it's pretty nice because you can, if you look down here, you can adjust this collar to adjust your ride height up and down. It's pretty easy. You know, just do it on the car. Turn left for down, right for up.
You know, what's nice about these coilovers in particular is that they use square thread, so with all the vibration from the car, you don't actually have to worry about the ride height changing once you've set it. And right above where my finger is, there's a small set screw, so when you actually pick your ride height, you just turn that screw a little bit, and it's going to lock in the ride height that you choose.
Okay, so now we're going to torque the lower control arm to the engine crossmember, which for a 510 I believe is around 37 to 44 foot-pounds, so we're just going to go with an even 40.
A big bonus to having these lower control arms is that they allow you an extra 30 millimeters of adjustment, as well as 23 millimeters of adjustable bump steer reduction, which is big, especially if you're going to lower your car.
And there's 40. Alright, so lower control arm down, onto the TC rods and the tie rods. Okay, so here we have our TC rod, which has no urethane bushings anymore, which is nice, so you don't have to worry about that. It's just these 2 metal plates which are going to act as your bushings. So it's going to be a lot harder to wear them out. To install this, first, we're just going to install our metal bushing plates, and then we will get around to doing the actual rod itself.
What's nice about both these pieces is that although they're strong enough for rally and track use, they are also quiet enough for the street, and just a direct bolt-on to what the Datsun 510 comes with as OEM parts.
Fuck you.
We're rolling.
Okay, so now we're gonna torque to 40 foot-pounds. What connects the TC rod to the body of the car.
Both of these pieces that I've just installed are completely adjustable on the car, which is important if you want to change your setup during track use versus daily driving.
Okay, so now we're going to assemble this guy, which is going to go through this. And it can be a little tricky to get on, but essentially goes nut. And then you got these guys facing outwards. One more. And then this is gonna come and connect to your lower control arm, and it's nice because these guys are dually adjustable on both ends. So it's nice you can do adjustments on the car without having to take the car apart completely, and make sure everything lines up the way that you want it to line up. Okay, so the ball joint on factory specs is like 20 to 55 foot-pounds, which is pretty, you know, that's a pretty big range. So I'm just gonna do it to 40, which is what we've been doing so far on a lot of the other parts. Okay, so then the last step of getting the TC rod attached is just putting this guy through the lower control arm.
I actually messed up the orientation of this nut and bolt. It should be the TC rod going in between the two holes in the lower control arm, and then the bolt threading through the top and then connecting on the bottom to the nut. So that's my mistake. This is the actual correct orientation for the TC rod.
There we go. Just need to break off some of the surface paint so that this guy wants to thread through. Okay. Okay, so now you want to torque this to 30 foot-pounds. And there we go. 30 foot-pounds. TC rod is in onto the tie rod. Okay, so now we're going to install the Techno Toy Tuning tie rods, which are also fully adjustable. And it's going to be ball joint, big old bolt, nut, and 2 of these bushings. Just like this. Now, on your drag link, the factory holes are, I want to say like maybe 1/2 inch, but for these bolts you're going to have to drill them out to 5/8 inch, which Techno Toy Tuning does provide the bit for that. So you know, if you have a drill press at home or you feel confident in doing that, you can just do it in a couple minutes. Otherwise, you'll probably have to visit your local machine shop to get it done. Definitely want them to be straight, and you definitely want it to be 5/8. Now, the factory torque on this is also pretty flexible, but middle range is about 40, so we're just going to stick with that.
Another bonus of using these Techno Toys tuning parts is that they're using a much heavier gauge steel than the factory, so it's going to give you a lot more strength and durability, especially for tracking the car and doing large horsepower upgrades.
There we go, 40. And now we're just going to attach that to the steering knuckle right here, and I believe that try to get the wheel pretty straight so that alignment isn't that big of an issue when the time comes. Okay, so now we're going to attach the tie rod to the steering knuckle. In the same orientation, which I did mess up last time, it's going to go nut, 2 bushings, ball joint, and then bolt. So we got nut, 2 bushings, through the steering knuckle with a little bit of persuasion, and then bolt. And this one you only want to torque to 30 foot-pounds is what they recommend. So bring this down to 30. And that's 30 foot-pounds. All right, so we got the whole front suspension done, and now it's time to go to the Willwood brake kit.